Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound podcast, the show where, as always, we're hitting you with them elbows of knowledge. And the ultimate job interview is here, and it is back, and Carlos and I are here to break it all down. Dana White's Contender Series starting on Tuesday, and as always, we've got a full card breakdown to deliver to you. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Carlos. What's happening, Carlos?
Absolutely nothing, brother.
And kicking things off in the first fight here on Dana White's Contender Series, we have Basugu Susakayv taking on Mertza Talea. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who do you have in this opening fight?
Well, I I took Susakayv, and I really liked his relaxed style, and he's very calm in the ring. Uh, he's laid back, but he's always at a ready. His stance is always ready to strike, and he was very relaxed on the ground as well in all transitions on the ground, in that mini scramble that they had in his last fight. And I just thought his ground control and his stand up looked pretty much effortless. Now that could be the fact that the guy that he was fighting was, regional talent. He was overmatched being in the ring with Susakaya. But what I got from that was, is this going to be the big test for him against Tala? Because Tala's a big grappler. He's a strong guy, wants to muscle you around. But as we've seen, because he was on the Contender Series before, stand up is not his thing, and he pretty much struggles if he can't get you to the ground. To me, I think Susakayev is probably going to get the better of him on the stand up exchanges. He's going to have problems. Tala is going to have problems getting inside for those takedowns. And on the ground, even though Tala's a strong grappler, I think Susakayev is very relaxed in position, and he's just going to transition. This may be the test that pushes him, but I think with solid takedown defense, good stand up, and even if it gets to the ground, he looks like he's very comfortable in the scrambles. I'm going Susakayev.
Yeah, it does have to be said that some of these underdogs and these kind of late notice replacements on Dana White's Contender Series can sometimes, kind of catch you out of guard, catch you off guard and end up pulling off upsets here. But it does have to say, that Talea, obviously fighting on Contender Series before, like Carlos said, he did fight up at 205. He looks very undersized at 205 against Rodolfo Volado. All 7 of his wins do come inside the distance, however, so he is a natural finisher. A lot of the fights that I saw, he was finishing fights on the ground. But it does have to be said that, when he's fighting over in Brave FC, he's, getting clinched up against the fence. He's getting held there, beaten up with knees. He's not, destroying people when it comes to the grappling or the stand-up. He's kind of getting out-muscled in a lot of his fights. He does train with at a gym that's called KHK MMA, which holds the likes of some of the pretty big names in the Russian wrestling scene and the Russians MMA scene overall, with Shamil Gaziev, Ikram Alaskarov. I know Islam's trained over there as well, just to name a few. And you would think, with all those heavy, sort of hitters in terms of the Russian MMA scene, that he'd be, kind of on that same ballpark, but he doesn't really stand out in any one skill other than the fact that he is gritty. He does sort of mix in the grappling and the sambo, and when he gets you to the ground, he does have good transitions on the ground. I saw him have a nice transition to an armbar in one of his fights, which is a pretty nice finish. He does like to throw knees in the clinch, and he does kind of get worn down a little bit, so I'm not necessarily all that impressed with Talea. And Carlos does make a good case here for how are you pronouncing that name? Sakuva?
I got Susakayev.
Susakayv, that's the one. Susakayv taking this fight on short notice. And if you haven't seen this guy fight, he's a little bit strange, a little bit unorthodox. He'll defend a takedown and all of a sudden run away from his opponent to the other side of the fence. And like Carlos said, he kind of does a lot of very calm things in there. He just looks like he's strolling in the park. He has a very nice straight right hand, a nice snappy high kick. And he seems like one of these guys as well that he's an opportunistic guy when it comes to trying to look for the finish and looking to do damage. He'll be in a scramble and he'll kind of throw like a little backwards elbow, or he'll just look to do damage in unorthodox positions that you don't often see. So I'm actually going to go with Susakayev as well. Talil doesn't look like he impresses me a whole lot. He looks like he gets held up against the fence a lot as well. And I just think that a guy like Susakayev is just going to be a little bit unorthodox for him and kind of cause the upset here. I think he'll probably be the underdog. But I thought I was going to be alone on that hill. I'm surprised you went with Susakayev, but 2 for him here. And for the second fight on the card, we have Yuri Panerov taking on Christopher Uitt. I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this one?
I went with Yuri Panerov in this one. Ewart looked to stand and strike in the fights that I've seen, but when it hit the mat, he wasn't able to. I mean, he was able to get back to his feet, but it wasn't pretty. The techniques that he used, it's not that he was flailing. He was just kind of turning his body, trying to get to his hips, which you're supposed to do. But if that didn't work out, then he was bucking and just kind of shooting his hips up. Like if you watch it, none of it was technical. It looked like he was muscling his way up. And maybe against lesser talent, you're able to, move them around, push them around a little bit easier because they're not putting their weight down on you as effectively as somebody at a higher level would. But I just don't think he has the high level grappling to deal with some of the higher level wrestlers that the UFC has to offer. And Panerov, I mean, that's his thing. Is he's a very good ground tactician, and I just feel that if Panerov can actually keep a high guard, um, maybe check the kicks as he's coming in, even though Ewart doesn't throw a lot of kicks, but if he can slip past some of those punches that are on his way in, he can get a takedown. And the takedown, I don't want to say it's going to be easy, but Ewart's been taken down by lesser talent, and I think that he can get the takedown and probably just control him and get the submission on the ground. Just the videos that I've seen, he just doesn't look like someone who's got some high level grappling. Panerov does. Now, when Panerov was on the last Contender Series, he got submitted by was it Torres Finney, and Finney he's a high level wrestler himself too. He's given people a lot of problems in the UFC. So there's no, I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting submitted by him, but I just think Panerov's got he's got the one up in this. Am I a fan of his fighting style? Not really. You know what I mean? He's good. He's dominant, but he's dominant on the regional scene. I want to see if at least he can win this one to step up. So I'm going with Yuri in this.
Yeah, two for Yuri here. I do think that Panerov wins this matchup. We talk a little bit about Christopher Uitt. He was actually supposed to fight Jackson McVeigh on short notice on a previous UFC card. That fight ended up getting cancelled, so didn't get the big ticket that he wanted. Obviously now here on Dana White's Contender Series. Uitt does have a lot of forward pressure, very aggressive style. He reminds me of like a Wish version of Bahamundes. He kind of throws a ton of flashy kicks. He's very aggressive coming forward. He's not as technical as Bahamundes. That's probably a little bit of an insult to Bahamundes, but the way he throws his combinations and kind of stands very tall, likes to throw the kicks to the calf, the body, and the head. He does have a good amount of power, and he will rip to the body as well with the hands. I do think that his distance management is also going to be an issue in this fight. I think sometimes he likes to clash into his opponent or kind of fall into his opponent into the clinch. And I think that's where Panerov is going to get those body locks and foot sweeps here to get the takedowns. I think if Uitt can kind of use his footwork and stay on the outside, I think that would probably serve him well to keep this one kind of a technical kickboxing fight. But that's why I think that Panerov's going to win here. I think at some point Uitt's not going to be scared of the clinch when he should be. I think that Panerov here is your typical Russian gritty style wrestler, as Carlos explained. He looks to wrestle, he looks to get fights to the ground. He's very dominant on the regional scene when it comes to his takedowns. And when he gets on top, he's very good at passing the guard, staying in dominant positions, and kind of taking what his opponent gives to him. He's not one of these guys that he'll just go crazy with ground and pound and give up position. He's not trying to force a submission. Everything looks very relaxed, like he's done it a million times and drilled it in practice. I'm going to go with him here. I do worry a little bit about the stand-up difference here, but I don't think it matters. I think Panerov comes in, uses that sort of Russian, grappling style here, and I'm not sure, but isn't Sergey Pavlovich, isn't his or Sergey Spivak, isn't his nickname the polar bear? Maybe there can only be one polar bear. He might have to change that name when he gets. Yeah, he might have to change that when he gets into the UFC. But I'm going with Panerov here. I think he absolutely mauls him just like a polar bear should. And next up, we have Jimmy Drago. If he dies, he dies. Taking on Ty Miller here in the third fight for Contender Series. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I'm taking Ty Miller in this one. Jimmy Drago, and this is my reasoning for it, is I didn't get to see much video on him. I saw a highlight video. Obviously, he looked good in every fight, and that's easy to do in a highlight. But what does it look like when you're really struggling? And I'm led to believe that I think it's Austin Bashi or Bashi, however you say his name.
Mm.
He was training with Drago, so I'm led to believe that Drago does have like decent ground game or like wrestling ability in some way because you're not going to train with Bashi and not have that. And so maybe he does have strong grappling. Now with Ty Miller, I haven't seen a lot of grappling from him either, but I have seen a striking and I've seen some takedown defense. And he fights the way he looks. He fights long and rangy. Has some snap on that shot. So Drago can't just rush in. As I've seen in some of the highlight videos, as he comes forward, he just kind of throws a hook here, hook there, and he catches you. What he needs to do is, try to slip past Ty Miller's punches, try to actually same thing, hold a high guard, try to get your head out of the way, move your feet. And he tends to just, as he's striking, come forward. That could play into Ty Miller's hands right there. Now, if Drago can get him to the ground, that would be great. But I also saw that Miller's got, same thing on regional scene. He's got really good takedown defense there, and he's been able to exploit that and get the stand up. So I feel that Ty Miller is probably going to get the better of the exchanges on the feet. The ground for me is unknown, but I think at 6'2", um, I'm assuming he's going to have a little bit of reach advantage, just being long legs. That's how he's built. It's going to be hard, even if Drago has good wrestling, to take him down because that's just what it is when you're going against taller people. So I'm going with Ty Miller. I feel all right with that. I feel that he's probably going to tag Drago a few times.
Yeah, I'm going with Miller as well here. Just to talk a little bit about Jimmy Drago, just before we kind of, I don't want to shit on his technique and his ability, but the guy, if you watch a video online, it actually talks a lot about his drug addiction, family losses. He almost died multiple times, and obviously he's channeled all of that into his fighting career. And he talked a lot about how his family basically pushed him to pursue the career of MMA and said, it's kind of now or never. He was on life support, I believe, at one point. I think he overdosed something like 6 times. So the guy is very tough. That's one thing I will say. And sometimes that can be a whole lot or everything that you need when it comes to Dana White's Contender Series. A lot of guys aren't skilled. They're not as experienced at this point in their MMA careers. So maybe that might, shine through here. His toughness might be everything he needs here against a guy like Miller, who's only got 5 professional fights. But when you talk about the level of competition between these two, when you watch some of the questionable level of competition that Drago's fought, some of the guys are, coming in a little bit wild. They're very exposed. It's kind of just whoever lands first. And that's the case with Drago. He leaves himself very exposed. He has more power than his opponent, so he puts him out. When you watch Ty Miller, he fights over in the LFA. He's a lot more technical. He obviously has a height and reach advantage in this matchup. He's got a nice counter striking style as well. He has a really nice tight left hook that he throws, which is a nice counter punch. And he's always pressuring forward as well. And I think that will serve him well against Drago if he can back him up. I think that might frustrate Drago, cause him to maybe leap in and get caught here. I think Miller is definitely the right pick. I wouldn't be surprised if Drago pulls off the upset with his toughness and just, wanting it that little bit more. Maybe we've not seen Ty Miller go into the deeper waters that Drago can maybe pull him into, but I am going to go with Miller here to get it done. I think he's a much cleaner fighter here. I do think that Drago's chin is probably going to get tested at some point. Maybe Miller puts him out. And next up, we have George Mangos taking on Radley Da Silva. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who do you have in this matchup?
Well, in this one, I ended up taking George Mangos on this. Mangos is a bit composed in comparison to De Silva, so I do like that. Maybe he sees the strikes coming a little better, maybe a little bit smarter on the feet. Although De Silva also very talented, but I feel that Mangos fights a little bit more with technical skill. Maybe better to say fight IQ, because De Silva's technical, but his stand up is all athleticism. He knows he's a little explosive. He knows he's pretty powerful, and he uses that in his favor, which of course you should. But if you don't know how to set things up sometimes, and you're fighting against a guy that can, you're going to have some problems no matter how good your athletic ability is. And I feel that Mangos sometimes uses his jab to set up strikes standing. Now on the ground, both of them seem very accomplished. The majority of both their wins are by submission. So once this hits the ground, I don't know who's going to have the upper hand in this. Sometimes I feel that the athleticism and obviously his technique is pretty sharp too. Of De Silva is probably going to get the better of Mangos, but Mangos also doesn't move a lot on the ground. He doesn't transition from position to position, but he does it slowly and methodically, whereas De Silva will jump to position. So there's nothing wrong with either one. I feel like this is going to be a really good fight for the Contender Series. Probably the most entertaining fight they're going to have that night. Putting my money where my, whatever. I'm talking tough already. I don't know. Could be a quick knockout, but I feel this is going to be a war. So I'm going to take Mangos because I think that IQ wise, technical, keeps his hands up, takes the small incremental steps to get forward, to open up his striking, does the same thing, small movements on the ground, as opposed to De Silva, big movements, a lot of spinning movements, and a lot of flashy movements. I'm going with Mangos. I think he's safe, but he's deadly. He's difficult. You know what I mean? He wants to hurt you. So I'm going with him.
I just realized when I did the graphics that both guys are having a little flex off here in the graphics. I just only just noticed that. I don't know why, but I think Silva's probably winning that, but I don't think he's going to win this one. I'm going with Mangos as well, Carlos. And I'm going with the Alex Morono theory. If you guys didn't know, when Alex Morono gets tired, he starts spinning like a helicopter, and I'm not a big fan of people that like to spin over and over again. When you talk about Radley De Silva, when you watch his highlight reel tapes, he loves to do that. He loves spinning wheel kicks, spinning wheel back kicks to the body. This guy loves to spin, and when you watch Mangos, he shoots him for takedowns, and he times them very, very well. And I'm not a big fan of people that like to do that repeatedly. He had a De Silva, I'm talking about, had a highlight reel knockout on the Canadian regional scene. He had a spinning wheel kick to the head of his opponent, knocked him clean out. It was, a great knockout. But my whole thing is when you face against a guy, like Mangos, who times those takedowns well, he's probably going to wait for that spin. He's going to duck right underneath, get that takedown. And I think once Mangos gets his fight to the floor, I think he's going to have a lot of success there. Even if it's not necessarily winning the round with a submission or winning the fight with a submission, I think he's going to win rounds, get a lot of top control, be able to win using, getting damage in rounds, and basically just welcoming Mangos into his own world. I think De Silva, like Carlos said, a very athletic striker, but I'm not a big fan of these guys that like to spin. It always worries me. Former Rise FC featherweight champion. He's the current BFL featherweight champion. But again, this is regional scene MMA, and it's one of the things where, maybe when the pressure gets to people, they fall in love with what they know. They go back to what they do. And De Silva loves to spin. So give me Mangos, the guy. I think he's going to go in for takedowns. He's going to keep it fundamental. Like Carlos said, when he passes the guard, he does everything in increments, everything with technique. Nothing is flashy and, trying to, get this highlight reel knockout. I just could see De Silva, basically doing exactly that, going for that spin, give Mangos the opportunity to take him down. And I think that's going to be all she wrote. Mangos maybe by submission or maybe by a dominant decision here with the wrestling. And in the main event of the evening, we have Nema Santana taking on Illan Bufo. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in the main event?
I'm taking Bufo in this one. Santana's a bit reckless, walks with his hands low and wide, so he leaves a lot of openings. Stalks his opponent, but doesn't do much while stalking. As he's walking him down, he tends to throw one strike at a time, whether it be a kick or a punch. And with that type of volume, you're not going to get it done. Now, it's great that he's stalking him. It shows ring generalship, and that's beautiful. But I don't know exactly how hard he hits or if he was just going up against lesser opponents. Now, I think Bufo is probably going to be the toughest opponents that he's ever gone up against. At 6'5", he's going to have that height advantage. I'm assuming he might have the reach advantage, but you never know. But even with Santana having to punch up, it's going to take a little bit of reach away from him as well. And Bufo, it's not that he's low volume. Sometimes he's looking to counter because he's always a taller guy, so it's going to work for him in this. But also when he was pressed, he was able to turn it up just a little bit. You know what I mean? So I know that if if the volume's low and there's not enough activity, he's going to actually push the action a little bit. Now, I do like the fact that on the ground he looked pretty accomplished. He was able to keep his opponents down when it got there and transition from position to position. And, you know, all the things that you want somebody to be able to do: good ground control, stand up wise, fighting at length, keeping the guy at the end of your strikes. So the only thing is Santana's kind of a wild card. You don't know what he's going to do because of his unpredictability. He kind of just stalks you, leans his head forward, and will throw a couple punches, wing a kick if he can. And, depending on how much power he carries, or if there's a lapse in, in defense, then yeah, he might catch Bufo with something. But I don't think he's going to. Bufo seems to be a little technically sound, and probably defensively sound technically there. So I'm going to take Bufo with that.
Yeah, I definitely think Santana has that kind of random ability to pull off upsets or catch you with a big shot. He definitely carries power in the hands, but Bufo does train over with Manon Ferro over in France. Stands southpaw, very nice counter left hand. He steps in with 1-2s, very nice. I'm impressed with the hand speed as well. He's very light on his feet. And I've seen in multiple fights, I believe it was two of the tape studies that I was able to find, 2 fights of his, he gets a takedown, he takes the guy's back, he flattens him out, he beats you up with ground and pound, he looks for submissions after beating you up with ground and pound, and he kind of just looks like the real deal. I do think that he's definitely impressive. I do think that he could be UFC level. My only real question mark on him was when you see him go in for finishes in some of his fights, he does leave himself a little bit open, being overzealous, trying to go for that finish, which I do think that could leave him open for a guy like Santana. Obviously a guy who, even though he is the shorter fighter in this matchup, still has a big reach, maybe bigger than what Bufo is used to fighting on the regional scene. Santana is a little bit flat-footed. He does obviously like to plant his feet and throw bombs. He does attack the low calf kick, but I just think that Bufo is going to be the better athlete here. I think that Bufi's athleticism, along with the fact that he can also mix in grappling, is going to be there for him as well. Santana doesn't throw a ton of kicks either, so I do think that if Bufo wants to keep this fight at range and use his long-range weapons, that's also going to be another path to victory here. My only real question mark is just Bufo come in here, almost get the finish, come in a little bit reckless, and Santana catch him. I don't think so. I'm going to go with the Frenchman here, Bufo, to get it done, to round out the main card. And as always, we have to round out the video by letting you guys know what's coming on the channel. We have the Best Bets video that is up on the channel currently for UFC Fight Night Dilidze taking on Hernandez. Check that out if you want some money in your pockets. And when we're talking about money, you know it's all about the dog of the week. The full highlight reel tape this week for our dog of the week for UFC Fight Night Dilidze taking on Hernandez, along with the full card breakdown that Carlos and I did earlier on in the week. A more detailed breakdown of each individual fight there for that whole entire card. And as always, Carlos, what do you got to say to the people?
Well, I hope we can give you the best information on these, because it's very hard to find the talent on the Contender Series. You don't know if they're fighting the right level of difficulty before they're getting on there, but I hope you guys liked it. We did it to the best of our abilities, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yep, don't forget to like the video, hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying the content. We'll be here for every single Dana White's Contender Series matchup, the ultimate job interview. We're going to be here for it, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.